The morning sun had just started to climb over the rooftops, spilling a soft gold light across the backyard. Dew still clung to the blades of grass, and the air smelled faintly of wet earth and wildflowers. It was the kind of quiet that only exists in small towns before the world fully wakes up. The birds were the first to stir, singing from the fence posts and trees, while the rest of the house still slept, except for one tiny figure crawling curiously through the grass. The baby had just learned how to move on her own, and every inch of the world seemed new to her. Her mother, exhausted from long nights, had left her in a playpen near the open back door while she fixed breakfast. But babies are drawn to light and sound, and the backyard looked too full of wonder to resist. Without anyone noticing, she pushed the gate open and crawled toward the garden, her small hands brushing through damp grass, her giggles swallowed by the quiet of the morning. There was nothing unusual about that garden. It was an ordinary suburban yard, patches of green, a few scattered toys, a faded swing, and an old oak tree standing like a guardian at the far end. Yet sometimes the most ordinary places are where the extraordinary chooses to unfold. On that day, beneath the shade of the oak, something alive moved, silent, coiled, patient. A snake had found its way there, drawn by the warmth of the ground after a cold night. It wasn't large or dangerous by nature, but like all wild creatures, it carried the weight of instinct. And in that quiet space between innocence and nature, the two paths of a baby who knew nothing of fear and a creature who knew everything about survival were about to cross. The baby's little fingers pressed into the earth as she crawled closer, fascinated by the glimmering scales that caught the sunlight. The snake lay still, its body partially hidden under a patch of leaves. For a moment, time seemed to hold its breath. The wind stopped, the birds fell silent, even the leaves hung motionless as if the world itself didn't want to interrupt what was about to happen. The baby's laughter rang softly as she reached out, her hand trembling not from fear but from excitement. Her palm hovered above the snake's head, then slowly descended, resting gently against its smooth skin. The contact was brief, barely a second, but it was enough to awaken something ancient and unpredictable. No one saw the moment. No one saw the strange stillness that followed, nor the way the snake didn't recoil or strike. Instead, it lifted its head slightly, as if studying the child, and then, impossibly, it stayed. The baby giggled again, oblivious to the danger that could have been, and continued patting the creature as though it were just another toy. The snake didn't move. Its eyes reflected the baby's wide innocence, unthreatened, unafraid. In that fragile, fleeting instant, something remarkable hung in the air, an understanding that defied reason, a kind of peace only the pure of heart could summon. It was the start of a story no one would ever forget. When the mother turned and found the playpen empty, her heart froze. Every parent knows that instant of cold panic when silence feels wrong. The breakfast she was making no longer mattered. She ran through the house, calling her child's name, her voice breaking into sharp fragments of fear. The back door was open, the gate unlatched, and the yard stretched endlessly before her eyes. For a split second, the world tilted, her breath catching in her throat. Then she saw her baby sitting under the oak tree, small and still. Relief washed over her, first until her eyes focused on what lay beside her child. She didn't scream at first. Her body refused to move. Her mind couldn't process the sight. A snake, curled near her baby's legs, its head close to the child's hand. She felt her pulse hammering in her ears, her knees weakening beneath her. Every instinct told her to run, to shout, to snatch her baby away. But something deeper, something quieter held her still. It wasn't the fear of being bitten, but the sheer disbelief at what she was witnessing. The snake wasn't attacking. It was calm, almost gentle, as if the baby's touch had somehow soothed the creature. The child, unaware of danger, was giggling softly, brushing its tiny hand along the smooth scales again. The contrast was unbearable. Innocence and instinct. Side by side, the mother's thoughts tangled in a storm of fear, guilt, and awe. She wanted to believe that she could control this, that the world was predictable and safe, that wild things belonged far from her child. But this scene broke every boundary she had ever known. The baby was supposed to be fragile, helpless. The snake was supposed to be dangerous. Yet here they were, in harmony, as if the rules of nature had bent for them. Her fear began to blur into something else as strange. Painful respect for the fragile beauty of what she was seeing. She took one careful step forward, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. The grass shifted under her feet, and for a moment she expected the snake to strike. But it didn't. Instead, it slowly lifted its head, turning toward her. Its eyes, dark and unreadable, met hers, and she felt an inexplicable calm spread through her. The baby looked up, smiling at her mother, unaware that she had just touched the edge of something miraculous. The mother wanted to move, to intervene, yet she hesitated. Somewhere deep inside, she realized this moment wasn't hers. To control it was nature's strange, silent conversation. One that would soon change everything she thought she knew about fear, about innocence, and about the fragile thread that connects all living things. The air in the backyard grew still again, the kind of stillness that feels alive, as if the world itself is waiting to see what happens next. The mother stood frozen, her body torn between instinct and disbelief. She had always thought of the world as divided, neatly safe and unsafe, human and wild, love and danger. Yet what she was seeing refused to fit anywhere within those lines. The baby, who could barely walk, sat calmly before a creature feared by most adults. And that creature, the silent snake glimmering in sunlight, didn't strike or slither away. It watched the child with an almost eerie stillness, its muscles tense but restrained, its body language protective rather than hostile. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. The mother slowly knelt on the grass, her knees sinking into the damp soil. Every sound seemed amplified, the faint hum of bees, the whisper of wind against the fence, the soft gurgle of her child's laughter. It was absurdly beautiful and terrifying all at once. Her eyes darted between the two living beings, her daughter, pure and unafraid, and the snake, ancient and unknowable. Somehow, they existed in the same fragile space of peace. Then something happened that made her heart stop. The baby leaned forward again, tiny fingers brushing over the snake's head, this time lingering a moment longer. The snake didn't recoil. Instead, it turned slightly and coiled its body just enough to shield the child's legs from the sun. It was subtle, almost tender, like an animal gesture of care. The mother's breath caught. It made no sense, nothing in nature's laws could explain it. Yet it was happening right before her eyes. The moment was interrupted by a sudden movement at the edge of the yard. A rustle in the bushes, low and fast. The mother turned sharply, scanning the noise, when out of the underbrush darted a second snake, larger, darker, restless. The first snake reacted immediately, raising its head, positioning itself between the child and the newcomer. The air seemed to snap with invisible tension. The mother felt a cry rise in her throat, but it never came out. She could only watch as the first snake, her baby's strange guardian, moved with purpose. It didn't attack, but blocked the second snake's path, its body forming a barrier of muscle and instinct. The newcomer hesitated, tongue flicking in warning, then slithered away into the shade, vanishing back into the wild it came from. The mother could hardly comprehend what she had just seen. The first snake turned again toward the child, still calm, still steady. It didn't move closer. It simply stayed there, like a silent sentinel watching over something precious. Something broke inside the mother, not in pain, but in understanding. The world was not just black and white, safe or dangerous. There were moments rare, fleeting, when nature showed its compassion in ways humans couldn't explain. Her fear melted into tears she couldn't stop. She reached forward at last, slowly, carefully, lifting her baby into her arms. The child laughed, oblivious to the magnitude of what had occurred. The snake didn't chase, didn't coil to strike. It only turned its head upward, watching them go, as if acknowledging a truth that only it understood, as she carried her baby inside. Her mind felt split between awe and disbelief. The warmth of the small body in her arms reminded her how close she had come to losing everything. But it also reminded her that sometimes miracles were the shape of the unexpected. She looked out the window one last time. The snake was gone, leaving only the faint trace of its path in the grass, curving like a question mark, a silent reminder of what she had witnessed, of what no one would believe. For days, the mother couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the way the snake had coiled protectively, the way it had faced down another of its kind. It haunted her, not with fear, but with gratitude. The neighbors didn't believe her story, of course. They smiled politely when she told them, some with disbelief, others with quiet amusement. But deep down, she knew what she had seen. She stopped trying to explain it. Some truths aren't meant to be understood, they're meant to be carried. Life returned to normal, or at least it seemed to. The baby grew quickly, full of laughter and curiosity, drawn always toward the backyard. Sometimes she would crawl to the window, tapping her tiny hand against the glass, as if remembering something. The mother would watch her quietly, her heart full and heavy. On certain mornings, when the sunlight was just right, she thought she saw a faint movement in the grasser, flicker of silver scales vanishing near the oak tree. There was no fear anymore, only wonder. She had seen something pure that day, the meeting of innocence and instinct, the unspoken bond between life and life. It reminded her that not all dangers are what they seem, and not all miracles look holy at first glance. Some hide in the grass, waiting to test our understanding of love and courage. Years later, when the story became just a whisper of memory, she would still think back to that morning, the warmth of the sun, the quiet hum of the world, the unthinkable grace of a wild creature sparing what it could have destroyed. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about the fragile peace that sometimes exists between hearts, even those that beat differently, and somewhere in the soft soil of that backyard, where grass grew over old footprints and time blurred the edges of fear, something sacred remained. The mother would look out and feel it a reminder that the world is stranger, kinder, and more mysterious than anyone dares to believe. Sometimes miracles don't roar or shine. They happen in silence, in the meeting of innocence and danger. When the world itself seems to pause and whisper, not everything wild is cruel, and not everything fragile is helpless. That morning changed her, forever. And if you've ever looked at something you feared and felt a flicker of understanding instead of panic, then maybe you've seen a piece of that same miracle too.